global happenings today. We communicate, we analyze global news. Stay tuned.
Hello fam, welcome back to our channel. The issue of corruption and corruption allegation has eaten skin deep into Nigeria. It's now a way of life, it's a norm. And we're not just looking at Nigerians alone, we're going straight down to Imo as Imolites cry out that Uzodinma has decided to do this to them, and they're wondering, is there any way out of this, as corruption, issue of certificates of land, and other issues, so many others, which we will mention in the news proper. Before we go into the news to give you the information, we would love you to subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so by clicking on the red subscribe button and the bell notification icon to get both notified and subscribed as soon as we update our channel. While Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State has warned that his administration would soon commence demolition of properties illegally sited on government lands. The State Commissioner for Land Survey and Physical Planning, Enyinaya Onuobu, disclosed this to newsmen. According to him, there will be no sacred cow, adding that federal parastatals also involved will be treated the same way. Onobu, while stating some of the achievements of his ministry since the inception of Governor Hope Uzodinma, also noted that the government would no longer tolerate indiscriminate allocation of land without also following due processes. How he maintained that it has been the practice of the previous government in the state, but I've read that he would never allow that to continue, adding that if not checked, may disrupt the master plan of the state. The commissioner, however, warned those occupying such lands to relocate or have themselves to blame. He informed that the state government would commence the demolition in 3 months after going through all the processes involved, which means in 3 months' time, those who are on government land without, even if you have proper documentation, but if it's illegally gotten, you may have yourself to blame. But let's continue with the news. So we are going to come down heavily on those people occupying government land and properties. Nobody will be spared. Their activities will be looked into if they are obstructing the master plan of the state. Some of them who built residential house where there is supposed to be market and closely watching those who are trespassing on the land meant for railway, they are to cease in their own interest, Onobu warned. He also said that the present administration has checked the illegal issuance of certificate of occupancy of all, explaining that the practice existed in the previous government had led to the state government having over 1,400 pending land cases in court. He said in the past government document is duplicated into 3 titles over one land. This happens because certificate of occupancy was in various hands. It was being issued in the ministry, in lands, and in lands. Bureau of Lands, even from the government house. So many hands actually producing this. When they create land, they give C of O. You find out that after that, 3 or 4 people would own allocation of one plot. That led to the ministry exposed to having over 1,400 pending land cases before I resumed office, Onobu said. Now that's the news, and that's the challenge that Onobu of Imo State, the Commissioner for Lands, is having right now. What Imolites are crying out and saying that this is so unfair. Some of the lands they've been used to it. Some of them have built houses. Some of them didn't bother to consult Ministry of Lands or find out the land use act of a particular area before building. All lands are lands, and as much as anyone who cares to buy land buys, doesn't really consult the land use act or the Ministry of Land. And that is so very wrong. Much as we want to sympathize with those who use your land and also buy from the appropriate quarters, so that in case of events like this, you could at least get your money back. One of my colleagues in the house who wants to share his own views as well.
All right, thank you very much. When we are talking about this issue of land use act demolishing houses that they claim that was illegally built on government land, at this point one cannot be so certain because Nigerians, as we all know, nobody knows the master plan of Imo State.
That's the problem.
That's number one. And number two, one of the things that is very, very would I say the feature in governance in Nigeria that is very common is the fact that people do not like to continue from where their predecessors stopped. They will even want to make sure that they frustrate the effort of their predecessor, especially if he was from the opposition party.
Yes.
And that's why what we are seeing right now, I can't concretely say, oh, it's a step in the right direction, because you'll be so surprised that there are certain documents that have been given to these people and said truly the government is in support that you bought this land and all of that, and they will still invalidate it. The present day government will just cancel it to run the show the way they like.
The challenge they claim they have is that they said 3 ministries or 3 parastatals are issuing certificates of occupancy differently. So 3 persons may buy the same plot of land, issued same certificate of occupancy. This one from land, this one from the bureau, this one from another parasta, Ministry of Lands and all that. At the end of the day, they all have legitimate CFO. So now they're not having litigations everywhere. But my fear, physically, as in apart from, let's assume they're all correct, is the fact that let this not be another form of witch hunting.
Exactly.
Okay, where they will say this land belongs to probably a native or a relative of somebody that's in opposition.
That's when you're talking.
At the end of the day, the Nation say no, according to land use act,
exactly.
Of which we have built that house for more than 20 years. All of a sudden now is now among the road for rail.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, you're about to lose the land, and there may not be any compensation for you, despite the fact that you have the certificate of occupancy and you're built. They may likely not give you a dime. They'll say, in fact, you're costing the government time, frustration, stress in marking your land and all that. But that's really my fear. Let it not be a thing of witch hunting. But if it is this, I would have even said 3 months, yes, but I feel that compensation plan should be in place.
Okay.
Because this is very hard times.
Yeah.
The economy is really bad, really dwindling. Some of them were not able to. They built this house from scratch, from little or nothing.
Some of them from their gratuity. They've served the states and they were paid gratuity and they went through the right process. Guess what? Personally, just like you rightly say, I feel that there should be a reasonable compensation for them, especially if they can show any document from any of those ministries, so-called ministries. Because the truth of the matter is that those ministries were put in place to regulate the buying of land by the government of the day.
So it's really not the people's fault.
It's not the people's fault.
If they have mistakenly sold the land to 3 people because they believe they're buying from the government should know better.
Exactly.
So if the government has sold to 3 different plots, then 3 different people, then they should find a way around it.
Exactly. I feel, because another thing is that you can't blame the people because there was nothing there that proves that it
is for real.
It was for real. It was for this and all of that.
To start with, it's even the fault of the parastatals, if you ask me. If I have come to buy a land, for instance, now I just came, I want to buy a land, and I walk into the ministry and I say, please, Ministry of Lands, I need a land in maybe this suburb or this area. I said, okay, please, can you identify the residential area? I would like to buy one there. And they just give me a land and I pay for it.
Okay.
Tomorrow down the line, or 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, they're telling me it is actually for real. Really? Are you for real?
Do you understand?
Did I not go through the due process? I didn't even go to Omonile land grabbers. I came to the ministry. You're telling me you're going to demolish my home?
Exactly.
No, you're going to pay me for it.
I also feel like we see in the United States of America and other reasonable, environment. They try to, they keep a particular site where the master plan of the state or a city is kept.
Yes.
Such that if you click into that site, you will see areas meant for residential,
yes,
and the one that is industrial,
yes,
you will see the roads and all of that, so that somebody will not go and sell a land that is sitting on federal government road for or state government road. So by the time you go through it, you will now know that, okay, this area I must not go close. But those things are not in place in Nigeria. Even if we can't be that very,
Organized.
technological, or yeah, technologically organized as those same these things Sena claim, but at least you keep a photocopy of those things. So we know that in Mbano, this particular area is meant for industrialization, and this one is meant for this. So that as I'm going out to buy, I'll now look out for this side, this community, this health community has been earmarked for development in terms of industrialization. This side is residential. Those are the things they ought to do. For me, he doesn't have the right to demolish anybody's house. I'm telling you the whole truth because I know something about this government. They will demolish those houses, and you'll be so surprised that they'll still use those. They start building residential houses in those same land.
My challenge is every city have the master plan.
Of course.
Now, for the beauty of the city, it has to go according to the master plan.
Of course.
Else, at the end of the day, the whole beef city will be so chaotic in its presentation.
Okay.
It's still the average Imolites that will still suffer for it.
Okay.
So it's always advisable at the beginning, from the foundation, clear the air, let the city move via the master plan.
Exactly.
Teach your people, your government workers, what to do per time so that they don't do this kind of mess.
Now, when you're talking about master plan, don't forget that these guys are they are in charge of their state.
I know.
And so we can keep producing this thing. What do we call this thing?
Certificate of occupants.
Not certificate of occupants. I'm talking about the area of creating new ones. I come on board and said, well, I don't think that the real should follow here. It should follow here. So carry the master plan. Let us clean up this side and clean. The next thing they see another person's house there, and they will delete the house. It's not something that from the original script, this is how the master plan ought to be. As governors come in, they keep working on it.
By right, that's how it should be. But they once a while they edit it.
You understand?
Once a while.
So that's why I say it's not
how it should be.
People shouldn't be blamed for it. The people shouldn't be blamed for it.
All right, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Let's meet in our comment section. What's your take on this? Do you believe that Hope Uzodinma is right in demolishing houses, residential buildings that is already encroaching the property of the government and distorting the master plan? Or do you feel the government is being too harsh on Imolite, being that there's so much hardship already in Imolite? Let's meet in our comment section. Let's